We're holding the Mishnah on Lamed Vavam days. Kol mitzvah she tluya boretz. We'll see, the Gemara discusses what is the meaning of this. A mitzvah which is dependent upon the land. Eina noheges el boretz. It only has application to the land itself. Sheina tluya boretz, a mitzvah which is not dependent on the land. Noheges bein boretz bein chutz loretz. It's in effect whether you're in Israel, in Eretz Yisrael, not in Eretz Yisrael. For instance, the Gemara will say tefillin. Tefillin is not mitzvah tluya boretz. Petach hamor. You have a donkey. Its firstborn opens the womb. There's a mitzvah petach hamor. It's not tluya boretz. But the Gemara is going to discuss, wants to know exactly what the meaning of tluya boretz, what it means. So a mitzvah which is tluya boretz only has relevance in Eretz Yisrael. She'eina tluya boretz. It's not dependent on the land. It's in effect whether you're in Eretz Yisrael or not Eretz Yisrael. Chutz min ha'orla v'kalayim. Even though orla has to do with agriculture. Right, the first three yields of a tree, of a fruit tree, ukalayim, crossbreeding crops, which is the land, it's agricultural. That is not permitted even outside of the land, although it's tluya boretz. It's something which has relevance to the land. Reb Lezo me'afa chodosh. It's going to be discussion about even chodosh. What is chodosh? It's a whole discussion on halachic level. Very lengthy Behaaloscha in Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Sfiras Omer. Cites over there exactly. Chodosh is, the Torah tells us that the korban Omer, any grain that takes root after the Omer was brought, is not permitted till the following year of the Omer. So that means the winter grain, all the winter grains. Once the Omer is brought, all the winter grains permitted.
What date do they bring over?
When do you start counting the sphere?
Oh, seriously.
Right. So from that, once they bring the Omer, anything that preceded it, that took root prior to that, is permitted immediately. It had to take root. It's not just putting the seed. It takes 3 days to take root. Okay? That means it already was in the ground. The seed was in the ground for 3 days.
Even if you don't see anything.
Nothing. It doesn't make a difference. It begins germinating after 3 days, or it takes root 3 days. That's called klita. When it's discussed, there's the Pinchas Chinuch discusses what's the halacha if you put a pot of water on the fire on Shabbos, and before it starts cooking, you remove it. You're not in violation. You're not in violation of bishul, correct? It's only if you leave it on the fire long enough, then it starts. What about if you put the pot on the fire right before Shabbos and it begins cooking on Shabbos? You're also not in violation. You have to what is the act of cooking? Putting it in a position where it cooks on Shabbos. Doesn't cook on Shabbos. What about if you put it on the fire 5 minutes before Shabbos is over and it cooks after Shabbos? Also done, because it started to cook after Shabbos. But yet if you put a seed in the ground, although it takes 3 days for it to germinate or to take root, the moment you put it in the ground, you're in violation of Zoreah. So yes, why? I mean, the answer is obvious, because otherwise it's not possible to be in violation of Zoreah. Planting means putting in a position where ultimately it's going to take root. So therefore he says that if you put a seed in the ground and you take it out the moment after you put it in the ground, the person says, I made a mistake. I didn't realize it was Shabbos. Puts it in, takes it off. You put a kettle of water on the fire, and then you realize it's Shabbos morning, take it off, you're not in violation of anything. You haven't violated anything. Where the fire pre-existed, putting it on. But if you put the seed in the ground, then you realize it's Shabbos morning, and you take the seed out of the ground. It doesn't help you any. Because the moment you put the seed in the ground, you put it in a position that ultimately can take root. Because it never takes root within 24 hours. It's always a 3-day process before. So planting means on Shabbos, putting the seed in the ground in a position where ultimately it's going to take root. It's a different reality. It's not possible. Otherwise, Torah can't prohibit Zoreah on Shabbos.
What is it?
What is it?
It's both about
Cooking means putting it and it cooks. So that's possible within Shabbos.
Zoreah is a separate issur than...
No, there's no question. No question, Sid. the criteria is a different criteria. It has to be different because it's not possible otherwise. There can't be a provision of Zoreah, planting. Right? Because it takes it takes 3 days.
Correct.
So what does Zoreah mean?
Right.
So if the Torah says you're not permitted to plant, it means putting it in a position where ultimately it'll take root. When's it take root? On Monday. Right? There's no other way to understand it.
Rabbi, you did just on this question, the peeling of the bread from the side of the oven. You've said that someone can take it off if you put
Before
it
it
on-
crusts. Before it crusts.
crusts.
No, it's a
There's an
question. It's a
example.
question. It's a question. It's a
So
question.
you could take it off.
No. That was a question of Gemara Shabbos. Rabbinically, you're not permitted to take it off. So the question is, a third party, before a person puts it in the oven, not realizing it's Shabbos. A third party wants to remove it before it crusts, so the person who originally pasted it to the walls of the oven should not be in violation of baking. Is the third party permitted to violate a rabbinic law to prevent the other person violating a Torah law? That's the Gemara in Shabbos.
My point there is that the way that I understood that, according to everyone, there is no prohibition by the first one who put it there until the crusting takes place.
Correct. That's like putting the pot of water on the fire. If somebody would put a pot of water on the fire, then I realize that he didn't realize. I should take it off. Because removing it, there's no prohibition, not even on a rabbinic level. Hasn't started. Definitely you should take it off.
Okay.
The whole discussion in Shabbos is only because Redias HaPas, removing it with the spatula in the wall, since it takes a certain expertise, therefore rabbinically you're not permitted to do it under normal circumstances. Let's say you put bread before Shabbos. Bake bread before Shabbos and the crust before. Now Shabbos, I want to take the spatula and remove it from the wall of the oven. You're not permitted. Rabbinically you're not permitted. Because it takes a certain expertise to be able to remove it.
But I presume that to remove it when you're just trying to avoid the violation of Shabbos.
It would be
you're
the...
not trying to protect it, you're not trying to apply expertise, you just want to get...
But it's an act which needs expertise. Therefore, rabbinically, it's classified as a malacha, rabbinic malacha. Right? That's the discussion. It would be the person himself. Of course, he would take it off. It's a question of the Raisa versus Rabbanon. There, the whole discussion is chatei b'shul she'iske chavercha. You ask one person to sin, so someone else should be meritorious. That's the discussion.
Person can take it.
Definitely.
But I just want to ask one question on Chadash, just so that, according to the way we understand Rabbi Eliezer, if you have to wait a full year after the bringing of the order, if it's planted,
Correct.
does this apply to everything or just certain
Grains,
species?
only grains.
So
Grains,
what-
not
so
not
that
not.
means that the farmers missed the date. They would be out of business for a whole year.
The grain, you could store the grain. Next year, when the over will be brought, that grain becomes permitted.
So it's storage.
Storage, correct. We're going to get this. I mean, it's the whole discussion today in America. After the Russian wheat deal, the whole Chodesh issue became, the United States always had a 20-year surplus. So the grain we had, whatever it was always Yoshan. It was always the old grain, because they would rotate it. They'd store the new, and they'd take out the old. Once they sold out the surplus, what we have every year is the new grain. No surplus. Even Fort Knox doesn't exist anymore, you realize? Okay, almost. We'll see. We'll discuss it. The Gemara says it's no. It's halacha Moshe Sinai. We'll see. Rebbe Lezer says af hachodesh. So there's a question what Rebbe Lezer means. Is it just as Orla and Kalayim have relevance, even although it's agricultural, it's also not permitted? Well, no. Chodesh is also meaning the Tanna Kama is of the opinion as Orla is not, Kalayim is not permitted, it includes Chodesh. And he says, no, Chodesh is also dependent on the land. So the Gemara is going to clarify this. Is he coming to be Machmir, or is he coming to be Mekel, Rebbe Lezer? That's going to be a discussion. So again, let's make it clear. The Omer permits Chodosh, the new grain, and the Shtei Alechem, but the new grain, that's only for the consumption of the commoner. What about the new grain to be brought in the Beis Hamikdash for the menachos, for the meal offerings? That they have to wait for Shtei Lechem. The 2 loaves of wheat bread that were brought in the Beis Hamikdash on Shavuos, those 2 loaves are brought of the new grain. Once the new grain was brought for the Shtei Lechem, which was a communal offering, together with the Kivsei Atzeres, together with the animal, which was a communal offering, that permitted the new grain going forward to be brought for all meal offerings. So the new grain was considered Yoshan, became old grain. Okay, so again, any new grain cannot be used in the Beis Hamikdash. Any new grain that was brought, but after the Korban Omer, the new grain is brought for Shtei Lechem. What about if you have new grain growing after the Omer, and you want to bring that new grain to Beis Hamikdash? Even, let's say somehow you're able to accelerate its growth, also can't. Because again, it has to be affected by the Omer. What the Omer permits to the hedjo, to the ordinary person, Shtei Lechem will permit now in the Beis Hamikdash. So it's a second stage to permit it.
The Shtei Lechem permits the bread, the grain that was,
Permitted to the commoner by the Omer.
which is the grain that was before the 60s of let's say you planted on the 60s of this, right?
So that grain is not going to be permitted.
That's like,
It had to take root.
That's
That's chodosh.
That's chodosh. So, I don't understand what's the Shtei Lechem then? What do you...
Shtei Lechem is all the grain that was the winter wheat
Right.
that was
Before
permitted by the Omer. Let's say before Shavuos comes, could you use that new grain to bring your mincha, to bring your meal offering? You couldn't use the new grain to bring your meal offering, because regarding Beis Hamikdash, it's still called chodosh. The first time you're able to bring of the winter wheat in the Beis Hamikdash was the 2 loaves of bread that were brought on Shavuos. Once those 2 loaves are brought, now all winter grain could be used in the Beis Hamikdash until next year. The winter grain, but the new grain that takes root, that's off limits till the next year, till the Omer.
So, I'm not sure I get this, but are we saying that between the 16th day and Shavuot, you're still not allowed to eat the
No, the common is permitted. You're not permitted to use it as a meal offering. You can't use it as the grain for the meal offering, for the mincha, for the Beis Hamikdash. For your personal consumption, the Omer permits it.
the onus of 16th. From the 16th
From
on,
16 on, the winter grain is
winter
permitted.
grain, all it's permitted.
It's permitted for personal
In
consumption.
the prior year, it's all permitted.
Everything's permitted, correct.
But not for a...
Not for a korban, not for the meal offering. The mincha is the only one who has grain.
Right.
For the meal offering,
Why would that be?
Xeris HaKosov. That's what Torah says. Shtei Alechem. You have to wait for Shavuos to permit the Chodosh in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay? That's Afa Chodosh.
So you have to use the old.
You have to use the old grain, correct. Okay. Doesn't make a difference. Let's say, for whatever reason, you can't come upon the old grain. You can't use the new grain. Let's see. Now there's a Tosus here. Interesting Tosus. The Mishnah is called Mitzat Tluyi Boretz Chutz Min Ha'or Levakalayim. The Yushalmi Porich. The Yushalmi asks the question, Amai Lo Toni Chalo? Why does it say Chalo? ומשני לפי שאינו באיסו של כוכבים. ולא מהר מסתכל בדברם נוגן בישראל ובו בתכוכבים. The Mishnah, it says, Chutz min ha'or lakalayim. What does it mention challah? So he explains, because challah, if a non-Jew makes challah, it's permitted, right? What obligates one of challah? Dough. The dough of a Jew, it has to be tied. What about if a non-Jew makes dough? Right? Has all kosher ingredients, you're permitted to eat it, doesn't have to be tied, because it's none. The kosher amay lo porach nami, hosam amay lo toni truma meiser, ki de porach michalo. What does the Yushalmi ask? What does it say in the Mishnah, truma meiser? As it asks michalo, it should ask truma meiser. What does the Mishnah say? Beilom fi she'enim elo midrabanan. Do chalanami eino b'chutz la'aretz lo midrabanan. V'afilu hochi boya mai lo toni chalo. Lo meshani fi she'drabanan. We'll see. There's certain Truma Meiser, there's certain locations, rabbinically, outside Eretz Yisrael, you have to take Truma Meiser. Yishlomid lochi boy michalef, yishagozu achalef b'chol mokom. Avol Truma Meiser, lo gozu b'mikomas ha'rechokim Eretz Yisrael, dafki yoros ha'smuchas l'oretz. Now, I just want to bring this point out. But the question that he says, there were communities, like say, communities which right over the border in Eretz Yisrael, even though it's Chutz La'aretz. But because they were cities next to Eretz Yisrael, people would confuse Eretz Yisrael with Chutz La'aretz, so the produce that grew there had to be tithed. Haynu taimer the gozu achala b'chol mok fi mitruma meiser, fi she'achala domi yosel lechoves haguf, she'achiv bo al yidei gigul iso, she'odem oseh. What brings about the obligation of challah? It's interesting. He's saying, Truma Meiser, it's only the communities which border, which are but Eretz Yisrael. Because there it's a question of confusion. Because if you don't take Truma Meiser in those communities, you're not taking Challah wherever you live in the world. Now, Truma Meiser, when are you obligated to take Truma Meiser? You can take it immediately. No, but let's say even that, not then. Even not then. Let's say the moment it's harvested, you want to take Truma Meiser. You can. You can. So, see, why? Because it's dependent upon what? It's the produce of Eretz Yisrael. Let's say a person wants to take challah before he makes the dough. Right? You can't. The Torah says it has to first be made into dough, then you tie the dough. So because the obligation is unrelated to the earth, it's unrelated to agriculture. So therefore, that's the reason why they're obligated, because if people would understand, in truth, it's mitzvah tluis boretz. It's only the grain that grew in Eretz Yisrael which is made into dough. But if a person would see it as that, perceive it as that, he says, no, this has nothing to do with Eretz Yisrael. I've created an entity which has to be tithed. So therefore, that's the reason why, regardless of where you are, rabbinically, you have to take challah. V'domi tvei l'choves ha'oretz. It is a mitzvah of the land. Okay. But rabbinically, because it could be confused as something which is incumbent on the person, because the obligation only comes about only once you've created the dough, a person says, you see, a mitzvah which is incumbent on the person, you have no obligation.
Why is it on the land?
It didn't know, because it's only the grain that grew from the land.
You're using that grain.
You're using that grain. If you use the grain of elsewhere, you don't. You have no obligation of taking challah. Rabbinically, see, he's coming to explain why Truma, it's only the communities that are but Eretz Yisrael. Truma, challah wherever you live. Okay? Okay, let's see the Gemara. I'm not, we'll get back to Tosa. I just wanted to bring out this point. He's bringing Shalmi. No, the question is, why doesn't it say challah in the Mishnah? It says chutz min ha'orlo v'kalayim. It should say challah should be mentioned. That's the Yerushalmi's question, right? So Yerushalmi answers because Truma Maseh, even orla and kalayim, even if a non-Jew owns the tree, owns the orchard, you're not permitted to eat the fruit of those the first 3 yields of that orchard. If a goy makes dough, you're permitted to eat his dough. That's the Yerushalmi's answer. So say, so what about Truma Maseh? Should say also the same thing. So he says, orla is what is prevalent all over, regardless. Let's go further. My tluya, my shena tluya. When it says in the Mishnah, a mitzvah which is dependent upon the land, not dependent on the land. What does it mean it's dependent upon the land? Ilem tluya dechsiv bo bio, shena tluya lokso bibio. Does tluya mean when the Torah says when you come to the land? That's tluya. That the obligation came about it's the contingent of coming to the land, where it says when you come and when you don't come. Hari tfilu pet chamor techsib bo bio. The Torah says ki yaviacho. V'nogen bein boretz bein b'chutz loretz. And yet, pet chamor and tefillin, one is obligated whether it's in Eretz or chutz loretz. Either case.
You're saying they didn't put tefillin in the desert? Is that how?
No, but they did. They did. That's the question. That's the question. That it can mean that,
It can't, because they did put tefillin on in the desert.
even though it says Rashi. Tefillin ashchem b'kamaduchtim rabbanan. See Rashi. Tosas has a problem. Rashi. What the Gemara asks. I mean, maybe you have no obligation to put on tefillin chutz loretz. The Gemara says maybe when it says mitzvah tluya boretz, it says it depends when you come to the land. That's what it means. So you only have an obligation with tefillin. Only maybe if you live in Eretz Yisrael. Maybe if you're outside of Eretz. If not, if you live. If you're in Eretz Yisrael. If you're chutz loretz, maybe you have no obligation to wear tefillin. No, the Gemara is going to cite a puzzle. The Gemara cite a puzzle.
The proof of that would be if we had a tradition that they didn't put tefillin.
Wait. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't.
That would be a proof.
Right. Well, there's an argument. There's an argument in Gemara in Bechoros. When did they start? When did the Petarechem, the animal that opened the womb of its mother, when did it assume that it's kedusha? Was it when they came to Eretz Yisrael, or even in the desert? It's an argument how to interpret the psukim. Okay, so maybe tefillin the same thing. The Gemara is going to fall off of this, but Rashi says something interesting here. Gemara says, if that's the case, tefillin and petach hamor, where it says when you come, you should have no obligation to wear tefillin outside of Eretz Yisrael. And Rashi says that can't be. Why can't it be? Tefillin ashkechon, bekama duchtim v'rabbonan amoroi de Bovel, the mantri tefillin. We find that the Amoraim in Bovel, they put on tefillin. We find throughout Shas, petach hamor petach tola rachmana. Okay, so that's the more question. How could you say it's dependent on coming to the land? So we see it's in effect, the mitzvah is in effect whether it's in Eretz or in Chutz Loretz. So Tosas over here cites Rashi's pshat, and he learns differently. Because maybe Tosas, maybe rabbinically. Maybe that the Chachomim wore tefillin outside Eretz Yisrael, that was rabbinical. Maybe there is no Torah, there's no Torah obligation to wear tefillin. Piers Kunches, the Noib Chutzlorz, the Rashchon, the Kamaduch, the Rabbona Amoroi, the Bovel, the Mantri Tfilin. Premotzina Bevchores, the Ram Berchomo, he Bobo, Yelo Petach Hamor. They have Petach Hamor, even Chutzlorz. But if it depends on coming to the land, where only it says, where Kiviacho, only then are you obligated in Eretz Yisrael, but not in Chutzlorz. But we find in Tomar, Dilmid Rabbona Aviyavdi. What's the proof? I'll tell you, on a Torah level, one has no obligation to put on tefillin or petach hamor, because tluya boretz means it's dependent upon where it says when you come to Eretz Yisrael. When you come to Eretz Yisrael, that's where the obligation. But where is it limited to? Eretz Yisrael. That we find that the Amoraim they put on tefillin or they did petach hamor outside Eretz Yisrael, that's rabbinical. The Yishlomar, the Mikomel Porach Shapir, the Chinami Drabon Havi Avdi, Mikol Havalei Lemisli Masnisu Chutz Mitfillin Petach Hamor. He says, if that's the case, the Mishnah should say, if the meaning of mitzvah tluya boretz means only rabbinical, so then it should say, meaning, even rabbinically, you're not obligated. Except, it should say, chutz min ha'orla v'kolayim u'tfilin petach hamor. That's what the Mishnah should say. Same, because those are the exceptions. Those are the exceptions. Right, because the Gemara has a consideration that Orlan Chutz Loretz is rabbinical, and Kalayim is rabbinical. So if that's the case, it should also say Tefillin Petach Hamor. 1 second. He says, how is there even a consideration that the mitzvah tluya boretz means where it says when you come to the land, only then are you obligated on a Torah level. But if it doesn't say that, then you're not obligated. Regarding crossbreeding crops, It doesn't say when you come to the land. The korele masis tluya boretz. The Gemara, the way Rashi is explaining, the Gemara's question is, and if it says kiviyachol, that's the meaning of mitzvah tluya boretz. What does it mean? It's contingent on the land being coming to the land. So if that's where it has relevance in Eretz Yisrael. Okay? By Kilayim doesn't say kiviyachol. Doesn't say when you come to the land. It just the Torah says you're not permitted to crossbreed crops. The Gemara understood something which is based on agriculture is not even the question. That's called mitzvah tluya boretz. Tluya boretz means it's contingent on the land. Even though the word kiyaviacho is not written in the Torah. That's mitzvah tluya boretz. But the Gemara considered initially a mitzvah which is not dependent on agriculture. It's on one's person. If the Torah says when you come to the land, that's also called mitzvah tluya boretz. If it's directly dependent on planting in Eretz Yisrael, that's understood. That's mitzvah tluya boretz. That's planting it. Eretz Yisrael, not anywhere else. But a mitzvah which is contingent, incumbent on the person personally, if the Torah says when you come to the land, then you're obligated. So maybe it's only there are you obligated. But outside Eretz Yisrael, you're not obligated. Right? We see that you are obligated, even rabbinically. So on that, the Gemara falls off. It doesn't mean that. So there's never a consideration. Anything which is dependent directly on agriculture, that's mitzvah tluya boretz, whether it says kiviyacha or doesn't say kiviyacha. The Torah says that you must do. You must observe that. But the Gemara originally had thought that when the Mishnah says mitzvah tluya boretz, and not outside it, so that's even chovas haguf, even if it's incumbent upon the person personally. So now the Gemara asks the question, tefillin, it says kiviyacha, and yet you have tefillin outside of Eretz Yisrael. So now the Gemara asks the question, Minani Mili. Amr Rav Yudhochem, a mitzvah she chovas haguf. So Rav Yud explains the Mishnah. A mitzvah which is incumbent upon the person personally, no heges bein boretz bein chutz loretz. That mitzvah is in effect wherever you may be. Whether you live in Eretz Yisrael, you're outside of Eretz Yisrael. Chovas karka, but it's something which is contingent on the agriculture, ein no heges ela boretz. That's only in effect, only in Eretz Yisrael, not in chutz loretz. So let's say tithing crops, truma meiser. It's only in Eretz Yisrael, not in chutz loretz. Minani mili. How do we know this? The Ton Rabbanon, we learn in the Brayso. Ela chukim. Ela medroshos. Chukim means medroshos. Hamishpotim. Elu adinim. These are the laws. Asher tishmun. Zu Mishnah. What's Mishnah? You have to review it. Tishmun. You review it to retain it. Lasos. Zu maseh. Okay? That's actualizing the mitzvahs. I just want to do Rashi. He says, what's chovas haguf? It's incumbent on the person. It's not dependent on the earth or its growth. Guf shalom go Shabbos, tefillin, avodas kochavim, Shabbos, tefillin, idolatry, pet chamor milo, circumcision, arayis chayotzaben. Other areas which are similar to that, that's chovas haguf. Dietary laws. What does that have to do with Eretz Yisrael? That's incumbent on the person, unrelated to the location. What's chovas karka? Shemutelis ala karka o gidulov. It's dependent on the ground, the earth itself, or what grows from it. Trumas and maisris. Chalo. See, chala, it's on the Torah level. Good. But that's on a Torah level. On a Torah level. Leket chichupeo. Right, that's the gleanings of the field. Shvius, sabbatical year. Chodosh, the new grain. Or lukalayim. That's mitzvah tluya boretz. Okay? It says tishmun. Zu Mishnah. So Rashi says, mevio lidei maseh, there's a tishmun lasos. Right, this Godel Talmud. Why is studying so important and retention? Because if you retain it, then you know exactly how to actualize the mitzvah. Let's see. Lasazu masa ba'oretz. So then it says ba'oretz. Yochol kol ha-mitzvahs kula lo yeinogim elo ba'oretz. Maybe all the mitzvahs based on this pasuk only have relevance only if you live in Eretz Yisrael, not if you're outside of Eretz Yisrael. Talmud loma kol hayomim asher atem chayim al adama. All the days that you live on the earth. Earth over here doesn't mean Eretz Yisrael. You live on the earth. If that's the case, all mitzvahs should be in effect whether you're in Eretz Yisrael or Chutz La'aretz. Talmud loma ba'oretz. So we have a little bit of a contradiction. It says all the days that you're alive on the earth, then it says in the land. So how do we reconcile when you're alive on the earth, then in the land? Ach sheriba akosov miut. We have it's all inclusive. All the days that you're alive, you must observe everything. Then it says in the land. Say ulamad masha binyan. What's juxtaposed to that? What does it say in the pasuk? Abek ta'abdun es kol hamakomas asher ovdu sham hagoyim. Right? You should destroy all the locations that the idolaters they did idolatry. So what does it speak about? Avodah zarah. Ma avodas kochav miyuchedes shichovas haguf. What's the characteristic of idolatry? It's unrelated to the location. It's incumbent upon the person, what you believe, what you don't believe, or what your actions are. No heges bein ba'oretz bein b'chutz la'aretz. Avkol shichovas haguf, something which is similar to idolatry. No heges bein ba'oretz bein b'chutz la'aretz. So that's how I reconcile. What do I include? All, as long as you're alive, something which is similar to idolatry. It's unrelated to the land. But when it says ba'oretz, mitzvahs which are directly contingent upon the land, which is the agriculture, that's limited to Eretz Yisrael. That's not Chutz La'aretz. That's not outside of Eretz Yisrael. Chutz min ha'orel v'kelayim. The Mishnah says, excluding orel and kelayim, although it's agricultural, that's even the yields of a tree, a fruit tree, even outside Eretz Yisrael. Kelayim, that's even outside Eretz Yisrael, although it's dependent on the ground, on the earth. Iboilu. What does Rebbe Lezer say? Af hachodosh. Now we have a question. He says even chodosh. What's even chodosh? Even chodosh applies even in Chutz La'aretz, and he's coming to argue l'chumra. The Tanakama says orel and kelayim in Chutz La'aretz, but they don't mention chodosh. Correct? So, meaning the Tanakama is lenient regarding chodosh. Rebbe Lezer says even chodosh. Not only is orel and kelayim applicable outside of Eretz Yisrael, even chodosh also is applicable outside Yisrael. So that maybe we're asking. So then Rebbe Lezer is l'chumra. He's not l'kula. He's coming to be machmir. Not only orel and kelayim have relevance to Chutz La'aretz, even chodosh has relevance to Chutz La'aretz. Or maybe af chodosh. He's coming to argue. Well, he's coming to argue that the Tanakh holds when they say orel and chodosh and kelayim, they mean including chodosh. And he says no, af chodosh is exempt as all the other things are exempt. I mean, it's only kelayim and orla. That's what it's outside of Eretz Yisrael. We'll see. Gemara explain it. Iboilu Rebbe Lezer l'kula polik. Is he coming to argue his position is lenient? No, l'kula. First he said l'kula. Iboilu Rebbe Lezer l'kula polik, or l'chumra polik. Or he's come to argue he's being more stringent than the Tanakama. So first takes on l'chumra. L'chumra polik, which is simple. He's coming to argue to be more stringent. Chutz min orel v'kelayim, except for orel kelayim, the hilsa gemiri law, which is based upon halacha l'mishmi Sinai, that although it's mitzvahs which are dependent on the land, the Torah halacha l'mishmi Sinai says it even applies to Chutz La'aretz. Aval gavdika l'meimachov eskarki, although you would think rationally, it's agricultural. All agricultural halachas are limited to Eretz Yisrael. So the Tanakama says, but the Halach Sinai says, not only Eretz Yisrael, even Chutz La'aretz. When it comes to orel and kelayim, avol chodosh ba'oretz, Chutz La'aretz lo. But chodosh would be different than kelayim and orla. My time,
It's a land-based, that's right.
more, 1 second. My time, it's more than that.
Okay.
Moshev. My time, Moshev la'achi Yerusha, yeshiva mashma. 1 second, you have to do Rashi over here. It says by Chodosh, Moshe Seichem. B'seifei d'lech v'kol karba lav l'mem b'chol mokshetem yoshem. Moshe Seichem means your communities wherever they may be. Eloma she'at ba'oretz l'schayvu kol yudal shono sho begilgu shekov shecholko at shenisyashu bo v'ika kol echad es shelo. What is the meaning of Moshe Seichem? Moshe Seichem means not in your communities wherever you are, but rather only after the land's been the conquest and the dividing of the land. You've been settled in the land. Odim l'kula poler. If the Tanakam would say that Chodosh applies even Chutz La'aretz, how does he interpret Moshe Seichem? So Kalayim and Orlo, that's the Chol Moshe Sinai.
Correct.
But Chodesh definitely, because Moshe Seichem means wherever you live, so that means even Chutz La'aretz.
So if that's the case, then that's
1 second.
not a common.
Right. So that means the Tanakam would be L'chumra, and Reb Lezer would be L'chulu would mean. Av Chodesh means no. Chutz La'aretz, Moshe Seichem means conquest. Conquest and dividing. Only after you settled in the land. Then Reb Lezer would be L'chula. Meaning the Tanakam when he says Orla Kalayim, which should be limited to the land, and yet it's not. Why it's not limited to the land? Because Sinai, so Chodesh, where it says Moshe Seichem, which means wherever you may be, definitely you're obligated. Rabbi says no. I interpret Moshe Seichem differently. Moshe Seichem means only after you settled in the land. Only then are you obligated. Okay, we'll get back to this.